Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Gotham's Windows 10 webinar. I'm Andy Meyer. I'm here with Ed Bratter. We're going to talk to you a little bit today about Windows 10, and we're going to go through an abbreviated version of Gotham's service offering, a Windows 10 workshop. A lot of you know us in the past for our Citrix partnership, our security expertise, and really it's all about bringing applications securely to end users. And if you blinked, you missed Windows 8, right? So I would imagine everybody's probably got Windows 7 or Windows 10 running on their desktop today, especially in IT. So what we're really helping people understand is how they can take advantage of this technology, how they can, understand the different enhancements that Microsoft's bringing to bear, and what we think is really an exciting new operating system from them. So what you see here on the screen is an outline of what we go through in detail for our customers when we do the workshop at their location. So we can come out and do this for you, and we'll go through, some of the new features that are in there, some of the technical architecture details, a lot of the different ways that you can use tools to prepare your environment for Windows 10, and then how you can really manage it on an ongoing basis, right? Finishing up with, how do I actually get from here to there? So Ed's going to walk through some of that stuff for you right now, and if you have any questions, feel free to pop them into the question window, and we'll get to them at the end. Without further ado, Ed, the screen is yours.
Thank you, Andy. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this fine spring day. So I want to kick off with a brief overview of Windows 10 and what's new, what's been introduced since Windows 7. Some of these capabilities came out in Windows 8, but we're gonna do it from a Windows 7 framework because our assumption is that most of you are familiar with Windows 7. So one of the big changes in Windows 10 is this whole concept of a two-in-one operating system. Basically what that means is that you have this so-called desktop mode, which is us running Windows from our desktops, which is very keyboard and mouse-centric, to the tablet/desktop mode, which is more about touch and smaller screens. So Windows 10 can flip back and forth between the two modes. Some of us have devices like a Surface that can play both those roles. So literally, if you have a keyboard attached, you get a look and feel that's more relevant for keyboard and mouse movements. You rip that keyboard off, everything flips around, and you're now more in a touch mode. I'm going to jump over security because I've got a slide dedicated to that momentarily. So Cortana was introduced with Windows 8. It's basically Microsoft's answer to Siri, or if you're an Android user, the OK Google. So it's a personal assistant, and I'm going to show that in a demo in a few minutes. Mobile device management, not a new concept. What is new is that now Windows 10 desktops can be managed just as any other device within your mobile device management infrastructure. Reason that's important is because a lot of people now are bringing their own devices, right? The whole concept of BYOD, right? I go home, I've got a desktop at home, I want to log in to the corporate network and get some work done. So with MDM in Windows 10, which is baked in, an organization can now have control over that non-corporate desktop. So when a machine enrolls, you can apply policies that only affect work-related stuff. So for example, you could do, everyone's familiar with the concept of remote wipes, right? You lose a phone or a tablet. On the back end, I can initiate a wipe to clear out everything on the system. In this case, what you can do is you could do a full remote wipe, or you could just say, you know what, wipe only the corporate assets and leave the individual's personal stuff alone. Universal apps, that came out with Windows 8. It's basically Microsoft's platform for apps moving forward. Essentially what Universal Apps is about is literally being able to run the same app across any Windows device. So that app will run on a Windows phone, for those of you that have one, a tablet, or a desktop. Okay, moving on. Microsoft Edge, again, I'm going to jump over that because we have a slide dedicated to that. Miracast is the ability to replicate or project what you're seeing on your desktop to a wireless display. So it's very good for doing presentations or sharing data. BitLocker is not new, but there's been enhancements. And the other thing about it is that it's now available in Professional Edition, whereas previously it was only available in Enterprise Edition. I just realized I skipped over Direct Access. Direct Access is basically the Microsoft's built-in VPN client. So real quick, because it's baked into the OS, literally what happens is when a system comes up and connects to the internet, that device is already checked in with corporate. So any sort of back-end management processes you have running, those can kick in. Once you as a user log in, you can now have access to corporate resources.
So that's like an always-on VPN?
That's exactly what it is. It's an always-on VPN, and it can also be policy-based. So you can provide varying levels of access based on policy. So that allows you to provide a sliding level of control. Hyper-V, for those of you who don't know, Hyper-V is Microsoft's virtualization platform. It's the equivalent to VMware. The reason it's significant to Windows 10 is because a lot of the security mechanisms that are now built into the operating system rely on Hyper-V. And I'll cover a little bit more of that momentarily. As far as moving from Windows 7 to Windows 10, Microsoft's expectation is that from an application compatibility perspective, that you're going to be batting well over 90%. So stuff that's running today on Windows 7, they spent a lot of time and cycles making sure that stuff would carry over to Windows 10. Very nice feature in Windows 10 are some of the repair and reinstall capabilities. If you find that Windows is not running so well, you could flip into this repair mode and say, literally, I want a fresh install of the OS, but I want to keep all my applications and all my data. Very easy to recover when you're having problems within Windows now. Okay, so what's going on in the browsing world? A lot of you may have heard that Microsoft has introduced an entirely new browser known as Microsoft Edge. It was written from the ground up. Okay, it's a forward-looking browser, and I'm going to demo this in a moment. But basically, it allows you to take notes. It integrates with Cortana. It's based on HTML5. Internet Explorer 11, which is the latest version of IE, is also available in Windows 10. This is largely targeted for organizations that have backward compatibility issues. There's something known as enterprise mode, which basically is supposed to allow you to run applications that were designed for some of the previous versions of IE going as far back as version 7. Okay, I talked about this, I mentioned this earlier on, security enhancements and threat resistance. These were very big factors in Windows 10. We've seen a shift in several paradigms in the way things are done. So perhaps one of the biggest benefits to Windows 10 is security. So identity protection. A whole new authentication mechanism is being introduced here. Basically, since the day one of networks, we're used to pumping in a username and password. Not very secure. So this new authentication mechanism allows us now to use stuff like fingerprints and facial recognition, retinal scans. So that's what Windows Hello is all about. These technologies work hand in hand with two-factor authentication. So in order to enable them, they have to, obviously you need the hardware, but your Windows machine has to be enrolled in order to support this. So that sort of gives you a two-factor authentication where the machine itself is your first level of authentication, and then whatever sort of biometric parameter you're using would become a second one. PINs are also supported, and the beauty of all this is that you're no longer even transmitting passwords across the network. So that eliminates many of the attack vectors that were previously available. Data protection also was a big goal here in order to help secure the environment. We're all familiar with BitLocker that talks about encrypting devices. Enterprise data protection takes it to the next step. And basically that covers data that's being moved off of a particular desktop. So that talks to data in transit. So Windows 10 has a lot of capabilities around that. Windows Smart Screen is basically a technology that what happens is a database, there's a back-end database that Microsoft maintains of applications. So when you go to execute an application, that gets run against this database. If the application is trusted, it's allowed to run. If it's not, based on policies, you may disallow it in its entirety.
So that's built-in application whitelisting.
That's effectively what it is. So when we go to the next category here, threat resistance, perhaps the most important change here is what's known as device guard, and that sort of also maps back to Andy's comment on application whitelisting, where, again, another paradigm shift. In the past, when you executed an application on a desktop, it was inherently trusted. And we relied on malware applications to then run processes that would distrust it. That paradigm is changing with device guard. Now, applications are never trusted until policies state they are. So basically, anything that now executes would have to be whitelisted. So that's a big step forward for threat resistance, right? Now malware might not even be able to grab hold because it won't even be allowed to execute. Now, some of these things require, some of these technologies I just mentioned require secure hardware. So Windows 10 takes advantage of some of these things. UEFI Secure Boot, basically that replaces the old BIOS, right? This is a much more secure way of booting an OS. New technology for that. TPM chips have been around. A TPM chip is basically a chip that resides in the hardware that provides a secured location to store important data, important security-related data. So in the case of Windows Hello and biometric authentication, that information is being stored on a TPM chip. Whitelisted applications are being stored on a TPM chip. The processes that are required for an initial boot are being stored on that chip. Again, this provides a methodology to lock down the machine in a much tighter capacity. Okay, so what I'd like to do now is jump into a demo. So just give me a minute to to flip things around. Okay. So first thing I wanted to show you is the new Start menu, and it's new from a Windows 8 perspective. You can see down here there's a Start button. When I click on it, I'm presented with sort of this hybrid screen, and I say hybrid because those of you who are familiar with Windows 8, you got these tiles. You may notice as you look at some of these tiles that the data changes. It's dynamic. So you'll get things like weather reports. I'll get some email messages. As new ones come in, they'll pop through. Same thing with news items. This is completely customizable. I can change the size of it. I can change the size of the tiles. I can move them around. All sorts of things. Okay. Now, going back to more of the Windows 7 look, that runs up and down this first column. So I've got my applications, just as I did before. It's presented a little bit differently. I'm given direct access to what's known as Windows settings, which is sort of the modern view of Control Panel. Control Panel still exists, but this is just another way to get to some of those locations and features. You have what's called Task View, which when you click on that, this shows you all of your applications that are currently running. Okay. Something else that's new, virtual desktops. A virtual desktop is the ability to literally maintain multiple desktops that hold a different collection of running applications. So as you can see down here, I've got 2 of them running. A lot of times for me personally, I'll keep one running for all my work-related stuff and another one for home. So if I flip, or personal stuff I should say, so if I flip to desktop 2, you can see different applications being presented. So here's a book that I was reading. Here's personal email. I've got OneNote with personal items. The other desktop happened to have OneNote running as well, but it was work-related notes in that particular OneNote document. The other thing I want to show you real quick is, excuse me, the new Edge browser. One very cool feature in that is the ability to take notes. So you can draw. Doesn't work so well with a touchpad. The ability to actually add notes. And those, when you click save, those will be, you could email them or they would save to a OneNote document. Last thing I want to show you is Cortana. Andy loves this feature, so I'm going to let him do it.
Yeah, so say you went to sleep early last night and you woke up this morning and you said, oh, I wonder who won last night.
So Cortana supports voice, so here you go, Andy.
Cortana, who won the NCAA championship last night? Boom, look at that. Go Nova.
So the other thing you see when you launch Cortana is different items that I've said that are relevant to me. So weather reports, you see some calendar items on there, some email, news items. That's all controlled by what's known as your Cortana notebook. And here's where you customize the data that you want Cortana to keep track of. So one of my favorites is traffic. You give it your home and work address, and it will tell you how traffic is doing. If you have an appointment at 3 o'clock and it ordinarily takes half hour to get home and there's an accident, Cortana will pop up and say, you better allow some extra time. So, so that's a very quick overview of the new Windows desktop. Give me a moment here to jump back into my presentation. Okay. So, okay, why move? I gave you a couple of reasons earlier on, one being security. Perhaps more significant for many of you is that, believe it or not, Windows 7 is already in extended support. And what that means is that Microsoft releases no new features. They only release security updates. Extended support is only online for 4 years, not even 4 years. So for those of you that are on a 5-year hardware refresh cycle, if you purchase Windows 7 today, that means that before that piece of hardware is slated for retirement, Windows 7 will be out of support. One note here, moving from Windows 7 to Windows 10 is considerably easier than it was going from Windows XP to Windows 7. That's an important note because I'm sure a lot of you are battle weary from having gone through that. Okay, real quick, this is just informational. End of stream support and mainstream support. Windows 7 Service Pack 1, we just spoke about it. End of support is less than 4 years away. We got some time left on Windows 8. I'm not going to dwell on this. So some of you may have heard that Windows 10 is going to be the last major release of an operating system that Microsoft is rolling out. So what does that mean? Okay, it means basically that the new paradigm that Microsoft has introduced here is Windows as a service. So what does that mean? Basically what that means is that updates are now going to be pushed out more frequently and on a semi-regular basis. So that falls into two streams. You have security updates, which will come out primarily on Patch Tuesday, which is a monthly event. And then you have feature updates, which Microsoft will roll out 2 to 3 times a year. Now, within that, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, you have these different layers of how those updates or how often those updates will be applied. So you have current branch, you have current branch for business, and long-term servicing. Essentially, all that means is how often are these updates going to be pushed out. That's important for businesses because we need to reduce the level of risk that these updates might introduce into the environment. So current branch will be more frequent. Current branch for business will be spread out over that. Long-term servicing branch is specialized and will only happen very infrequently.
So we just got a question in from the audience about patching and updating, and I think this should have addressed it, right? So basically you have options. It's flexible in terms of how you can automate updates or make them, go through your own QA process, and it's going to give you a lot of options, a lot of flexibility in terms of keeping Windows current on the desktop.
So you do have control over that. That's the important thing here. Okay, so group policies. Obviously, Windows 10 has introduced a lot of new features that we talked about. So group policies has been updated to reflect those changes. So it's important before you roll out Windows 10 that you grab those new templates and not use the older templates. Okay, deployment. Again, the end of an era, the end of the wipe and reload era. Very quickly, there's sort of 3 strategies. One of them is wipe and load. Of course, that's still available. That wipe and load basically means if you have an existing piece of hardware, you wipe it out, you start over again. That might even be the case for if you buy OEM hardware, you might still do a wipe and load. Microsoft's vision going forward is in-place upgrade, and I know that's an evil term. That's changed in Windows 10. And then we have what's called provisioning, which is a transformation process. So for example, if you buy OEM hardware or off-the-shelf hardware, the idea behind provisioning is that Windows 10 is already installed, it's optimized, it's got all its drivers. Why wipe that out and start over again? So provisioning is a way to transform, make the changes to the OS to function the way you want them to function. So that means you can remove stuff, you can add stuff, what have you. The in-place upgrade is also very different. Basically, you can do things like if you wanted to run it on Windows 7, you can, what Windows can do is take all those Windows 7 settings and data, move them off to the side, go through a complete refresh of the OS, and then bring that back in. That's what let Windows do the work means. So again, 2 very exciting new strategies for rolling out Windows that tremendously simplify the process of maintaining Windows going forward. From deployment tools, everything on this page that you're looking at has been around for a while. So for those of you who were intimate with that process, you will recognize those. The one on the bottom is the new one, the Imaging and Configuration Designer, ICD. That's what you will use to build these transformation packages. So again, you can basically take an existing platform and make the changes you want to it without having to start over again. User data management. What I want to call out here are 2 things. One, work folders. I'll talk about that in a moment. Cloud hosted. So we're all familiar with that now, right? OneDrive, Dropbox, Google Drive. Windows 10 has a lot of capabilities built in to automatically synchronize. Obviously, the go-to choice is OneDrive. If you have a OneDrive account or OneDrive for Business, the moment you enter in those Windows credentials, that synchronization process is set up.
One of the things we're also having a lot of success with is our partnership with AppSense. A lot of people are taking advantage of the Desktop Now, Data Now suite so that they're implementing personalization, environment management, as well as data management while they're on the Windows 7 platform. And then when they upgrade to Windows 10, they just reconnect to the AppSense world, and all of a sudden all their local data, all their local preferences and personalization is right back with them. So really it makes for a minimal impact, low overhead for you from a migration perspective, and also minimal impact on the end user, right? You want happy end users if you're going to make this change, present them with this type of new interface.
Okay, last topic, work folders. So basically, think of work folders as OneDrive or Dropbox, but on-prem. So essentially what you're doing is you're setting up a back-end infrastructure that basically emulates what a OneDrive, Dropbox, Google Drive is doing, and allows you to synchronize your work data between your devices, whichever devices they may be, and an on-prem back-end infrastructure. Very cool. So the last slide just gives you some bullet points on the deployment process.
Yeah, so we wanted to just talk a little bit about, this is what Gotham does, right? We're in the business of providing professional services to our customers, and we engage at any number of different points along that kind of desktop transformation process, whether it's developing a secure image for you, right, being able to come in and design that image and architect it for you and then test it with all the different applications that are required within the image based upon however many hardware platforms. We can run that pilot for you. Our training manager, Michelle Kyle, makes some really great programs around training in terms of, getting people from Windows 7 to Windows 10, understanding what's new, being able to do floor support, have trainers on site, right, run some end user classes, that kind of thing. And then it's, whether it's just deployment, whether it's logistic, we have to do white glove service, smart hands, smart feet to go out and get new machines out, whether it's local, whether it's, go to all your branch offices. We can put tech teams in place that go out and take care of that for you. So that's really, a lot of the things that we're doing for customers. That's about all we had today. Again, that's 30 minutes of our Windows 10 workshop. Typically, these go for 4 to 8 hours, depending on your organization and how many people we have in the room. We've got more in-depth content that we drill into some of these items. Typically, what we'll do is we'll engage you beforehand, and we'll talk about what's important to your organization, and we'll tune the workshop to your needs, right? If there are certain things that you don't really care about, you don't want to talk about, we'll talk about them, right? We'll do that, custom content for your organization, and the best part is we do it for free. So you can feel free. We'll reach out to you following this and see if there's any interest in having a follow-up session with your firm, and we'll take it from there. So just a quick look if there's any questions. We're open for Q&A. If you'd like to send in a question, the window at the bottom right of your screen is there. And it doesn't look like we've got anything further. We did have something about patching, but we want to thank everyone for taking the time today to join us. We hope you found that it was valuable, and we'll be following up with you following the webinar just to see if there's any interest in continuing further. And we wish you all a great day. Take care, everyone.